Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Digestible Podcast, where we give you all the health and wellness information that you need in an amount of time that your busy day can handle. And we make it easily digestible. I'm Staci, along with my co-host / sister, Melissa. And today we have Marion Nestle with us, which Missy was going all fangirl on.
I was.
And Marion Nestle, if you don't know who she is, we're going to tell you. She is probably the most impressive person I think I've ever met. Missy,
Yes.
tell us about Marion.
So Marion Nestle, I'm reading her bio, but she's just off the charts, amazing.
She's done everything.
Everything. She's a Paulette Goddard Professor of Nutrition, Food Studies, and Public Health Emerita at New York University. In the department she chaired from 1988 to 2003, and from which she retired in 2017. But nothing slows this woman down, because retirement did nothing to slow her down. She is a visiting professor of nutrition sciences at Cornell. She earned a PhD in molecular biology and an MPH in public health and nutrition from the University of California, Berkeley. In 1986 to 1988, she was a senior nutrition policy advisor in the Department of Health and Human Services and the editor of the 1988 Surgeon General's Report on Nutrition and Health. Her research and writing examine scientific, societal, and business influences on food choices and their health consequences, emphasizing the role of food industry marketing. She is the author and co-author or co-editor of 16 books, several of them prize-winning, most notably Food Politics, How the Food Industry Influences Nutrition and Health, and most recently, What to Eat Now, both of which I actually have.
And when she writes a book, she writes a book. Like What to Eat Now is like a Bible, and it's so easy to read and so important to read.
Right. But if you're not going to read it, listen to this interview, because she puts it so plainly, and it's like, she makes it sound so simple. Her wisdom is just, we're floored. We're so excited for you to hear her.
She's fabulous.
Enjoy. Marion Nestle, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here.
We're so excited to have you here. So just for our audience, for the edification of our audience, Professor Marion Nestle is the expert that the experts quote. You're a researcher, you've written journal articles and many books. We've already said this in the intro, but we're just so pleased to have you here, because a lot of our listeners, all of us really, we get a lot of our information from social media, or even just the broader media, New York Times, Washington Post, and there's so much out there that we don't know if we can trust it, and you are a trusted source. So we are going to ask you questions today, and you can help guide us and our listeners on our health journeys. So thank you.
No, happy to be here.
Great. Okay. So in your book, Food Politics, we'll start there. You talk about the food pyramid a bit, and the USDA and HHS has recently released a new food pyramid, and we are interested to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, they're complicated, and I haven't fully sorted them out yet. I've been writing about them all week at foodpolitics.com, and every time I look at them, I see something else that I want to comment about. There are a couple of things about it that I really like. I like the overall message, eat real food, which is not actually part of the dietary guidelines, and I wish it had been. I think it should have been guideline number 1. But they claim that it's the overall message of the dietary guidelines themselves and of the new food pyramid. And it's a really sensible message. I really like it. The other message that I really like is the one, for the first time, the dietary guidelines are talking about food processing. And they're advising avoiding highly processed foods, particularly those that are high in sugar and refined carbohydrates, and also additives such as petroleum dyes and color and texture and flavors. So that, it seems to me, is an enormous step forward, and I wish they had just stopped there, or if they had made the guidelines consistent, with the summary that I've always really liked, which is Michael Pollan's mantra, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. He took 7 words to say that. I took 700 pages, basically the same thing. But
Right.
that's not what the guidelines do. In fact, they do the opposite. They say eat food as much as you like, mostly meat. And that's kind of astonishing
Mm,
because we know that meat has issues about health and that meat production is an enormous factor in environmental degradation and climate change.
right.
And if you want to, consume a diet that makes people healthy and also prevents climate and environmental issues, you want people eating less meat if in developing countries. So the guidelines actually don't say that. What they say is you should almost double the amount of protein that you're eating. But most people think of protein as a euphemism for meat, even though there's plenty of protein in plant products. And the guidelines advise raising the protein intake from under a gram per kilogram per day to 1.6, essentially a doubling of protein, meat, or wherever else you get it from.
Mm-hmm.
And what seems so unnecessary about that is that that's what Americans are already eating. Most people eat twice the amount of protein that they need and get 2/3 of it from meat. So why do we need a guideline urging people to do more of that? We really need a guideline that urges people to choose protein from plant sources. So I think that one was a big mistake. The second big mistake, or I don't know how big a mistake it was, it's puzzling, is the guideline that says choose full-fat dairy. Guidelines previously said choose low-fat dairy. Now they're saying choose full-fat dairy, which is fine in moderation, but how are you supposed to meet another guideline recommendation to keep saturated fat at 10% of calories if you're eating full-fat dairy and full-fat meat? And it's very hard to know how that would be possible to do. And
Mm-hmm.
then they want you to eat healthy fats. But they
Right.
define healthy fats not as polyunsaturated or unsaturated oils. They define them in food terms. Olive oil, fine. Butter and beef tallow? What's that about? I
It's
mean,
like the new hot thing.
Right. Sounds very
beef
fatty.
tallow and butter are very high in saturated fat.
Mm-hmm.
And the guidelines describe olive oil, butter, and beef tallow as being sources of essential fatty acids when they're not. Seed oils are sources of essential fatty acids, and seed oils are not mentioned because RFK Jr. thinks that seed oils are poisoned. At least he didn't say that. But they're not listed anywhere in the guidelines. And then the fourth weird thing has to do with the alcohol recommendation, which says limit alcohol intake. Fine. Limit it from what?
Mm.
Less alcohol from what? Compared to what? And there's a whole story about that, and not a very pretty one. So it looks like these things were thrown together, and in fact they were, as it turns out, without really the kind of careful thought and consideration that has gone into the guidelines in the past. I've had my criticisms of the guidelines in the past, but these are astonishing.
Okay.
What is behind that alcohol recommendation?
It's a long story. The Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee appointed during the Biden administration was instructed not to deal with alcohol. Previous guidelines have said upper limit of 2 drinks a day for men and 1 for women. But in the guidelines before this, evidence started coming out that any level of alcohol increased the risk for cancer and other kinds of chronic diseases. And there was a big push to reduce that to 1 drink a day for men and none for women. Okay. That didn't happen. That was suppressed. And so the Guidelines Committee was told not to deal with alcohol. Instead, The agencies commissioned a report from Health and Human Services to look at alcohol and chronic disease risk. And Congress commissioned a report from the National Academies of Medicine, Engineering, of Science, Education, and Medicine, NASM. And so those two reports came out in January, but just before they came out, the Surgeon General came out with a report that said that any level of alcohol increased the risk for 6 kinds of cancer, particularly breast cancer. The NASM report said, low levels of alcohol reduce the risk for heart disease. And yeah, cancer's a problem. And the report from Health and Human Services said any level of alcohol increases the risk for cancer, and the amount should be 1 drink a day for everybody. That report was suppressed. It never came out. You can't find it online. It's not available. So the scientific committee that was appointed instead of the previous Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee was told to just pay attention to the NASM report. And that's what they did. So on the basis of the NASM report, which says nice things about reducing heart disease, doesn't talk much about cancer, these recommendations don't say anything about cancer risk at all, which it seems to me is rather a disservice.
Right.
So I look at the recommendation and think, well, I like a half a bottle of wine every day. What does limit mean? I don't know what limit means. I don't know what less means. I'd like it defined. I think they should have said 1 drink, up to 1 drink a day for men and women, and then you could have a few drinks a week and not worry about it. That's
right.
Makes sense to me.
It sounds very much like they're catering to what's popular now, which is people still want to have a little bit of alcohol. So if you get specific, you're going to disappoint some people. And then
I think it disappoints the alcohol industry. That's what's behind
okay.
this.
And you talk a lot about that in food
that's
politics.
What's behind this. The alcohol industry, although I'm told the alcohol industry preferred 2 drinks a day for men and 1 for women.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
But I've seen reports from trade groups that say, ooh, we like this.
Yeah. Well, how do you think the agriculture lobbies are feeling about the recommendation for daily grains being so much less than the old food pyramid had like 6 to 11 servings of grains and breads a day, and now it's down to
I don't know. I mean, it's down at the bottom of the pyramid, and that's whole grains. It's not even refined grains. It's whole grains.
Right.
They don't like it. And one of the reasons why seed oils is not mentioned in the guidelines is because the producers of corn and soybeans had conversations with whoever. We don't know who wrote the guidelines. That's not
right. Okay.
That's not been revealed.
That's
we
part
know
of the
who did
problem.
the scientific report, and we know about their conflicts of interest with meat and dairy industries.
Right.
But we don't know who wrote the guidelines.
Okay.
So I think this is actually a good segue into a question we have. So the definition of healthy eating has changed a lot over the course of your career and my education. I have an undergrad in nutrition. And
I would argue otherwise. I don't think it's changed at all. It's always been balanced calories. Don't eat a lot of junk food, and make sure you have plants in your diets. It's always been like that.
So that's your description of healthy eating today.
Yeah, eat food, not too much, mostly plants.
Okay, I love that.
Okay,
that's one of my favorites.
I think that takes care of it really well.
Yeah. Well, do you want to do the ultra processed foods question?
Yeah. So. Okay. Everyone's talking about the ultra-processed foods versus the processed foods.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be a lot of confusion. And you cleared it up really well when you said if you can make it in your kitchen, it's not ultra-processed.
Yeah. I mean, if you've got the ingredients and the equipment, it's not. You make ice cream in an ice cream freezer in your kitchen, it's not ultra-processed. If you start adding really weird things to it, then it is.
Okay.
I
Like
mean,
the industrial additives, the things you can't buy off the
yeah,
shelves in
you
the
can't
grocery
buy
store.
them. So that makes it pretty easy. I mean, what you're looking for to define ultra processed is the artificial flavors, colors, texturizers, emulsifiers. Um, those are markers of artificial sweeteners. Those are markers of ultra processing. Sugar and salt alone are not enough to make
Right.
Okay.
make it.
What
Those
about flour, like refined
no,
flour?
those are
Not
culinary
necessarily.
ingredients.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you think the government should play a role in regulating the ultra processed foods?
Of course, the government should play a role in trying to do everything possible to improve the health of the American people. I'm all for that. I think that's government's role. For one thing, it would save a lot of money in healthcare costs. And we don't
Absolutely.
have a healthcare system in this country.
Right. So
Absolutely.
there are countries where there are restrictions on what can be put on food labels and the front of food packaging. And in the US, there's some, but just not much. You've written extensively about how the food industry, how it influences, like how food marketing shapes our eating habits. What are some ways that they do that, and maybe ways that we don't realize? Things that we might, things
Well,
that
I mean, any health claim on a food package is misleading, inherently misleading, because eating that one particular food isn't going to change your health.
right,
It's not one way or the other. Your diets and health are based on the entire diet that you eat. It's everything you eat and a lot of other things. It's not one food. So any health claim is inherently misleading. Um, Antioxidants. Oh, come on. There's no evidence at all that eating a product with antioxidants is going to do anything for your health. How could it? Just think about it for a minute. Those are marketing terms. Um, and that's why there's been so much pressure to try to put warning labels on ultra processed foods or
okay.
foods that are high in sugar, salt, and saturated fat or whatever. Um, and the FDA is working on what the Trump administration will do with that effort. I have no idea.
But Unsavory Truth, you talk about how research can be skewed in that someone can say, if for example, if some research comes out about pomegranates, they could say, and then you get somebody writing an article in the New York Times like pomegranates could save your life.
Yeah, but it's the research basis. That book is about the research basis behind health claims. And the pomegranate one is a great example because they had health claims on food labels that were enormously misleading, and the FDA came in and shut that down. Um, but and they spent millions and millions of dollars on research. And some of it is, I just laugh. I could have saved them a lot of money. I mean, they, for example, funded a study that if you feed concentrated pomegranate juice to mice or rats, their blood levels of antioxidants go up. I could have told them that. Obviously, if you feed antioxidants, they're going to have antioxidants. They didn't have to spend millions of dollars to do that study. And the purpose of the study was to prove that, antioxidants are there.
Right. But we know that, right? Like blueberries, something that is a blueberry flavor isn't going to have antioxidants, but we know that blueberries themselves have phytochemicals in them that help. Okay.
All fruits and vegetables have phytochemicals. No
Right.
exceptions. They all have them. Every single fruit and vegetable is a superfood by that criteria.
Marion, it does sound like there's a lot of the basics remain true and consistent, which is eat lots of plants, lots of different colors, eat real foods.
Makes sense to me.
Okay. All right.
So, what would you say to just the regular people that are in the grocery stores seeing these food labels?
Well, I think, everybody should read food labels. I think they're fascinating.
They are.
Particularly starting with the ingredient list. My first question is, what's in this thing?
Okay.
And I used to say, stick to the periphery of the supermarket because that's where the real foods are. But now the grocery stores have cottoned on to that, and they're putting. So I just talked to somebody who told me that in a supermarket near him in Wisconsin, the alcohol is in the produce section.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, that's too bad because people do need to keep it
Oh,
simple. But I guess,
really?
okay, people,
Okay.
fruits and vegetables, not necessarily periphery, but fruits and vegetables, beans, nuts, some
Good
animal protein.
question that I'd like to ask because I am personally curious. What does Marion Nestle eat?
Oh, I love being asked that. Thank you. You know, I'm old. I don't eat much anymore. And but I follow my own advice. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. I mean, I find that advice very easy to follow. I happen to like vegetables. So I like flavors, textures, colors, all that stuff. I don't have any trouble following that advice. Do I eat junk food? Of course I do. I just don't eat very much of it.
Okay. Do you eat,
That's a very
what
real
kind of,
answer.
where do you
What?
get your protein?
I don't think about protein. It's
Okay.
such a non-issue. It's in so many different kinds of foods. If you eat a variety of foods, you're going to get enough protein, even if you're only eating plants. And I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian, so I eat animal foods.
Okay.
No, I mean, so if you're eating real food, I never think about it.
Don't overthink it. I
That's
love
good.
that.
So when you
Okay.
see all the recommendations where every person, especially middle-aged women, are supposed to be getting 100 grams of protein a day, and they're all eating all these protein bars and protein smoothies and all these things, and now everyone's
Cottage
on
cheese and egg
right now
whites.
everyone's on fiber. Now you got to add
Well,
30 grams of fiber.
I'm beyond middle age, and I never touch that stuff.
Okay.
I mean, I just
Okay.
don't like it. I don't think it tastes good.
Sure.
I really care a lot. I like food. I really care about how it tastes. And I like my food fresh. I like real food. I eat according to the real food idea. I don't find it difficult. I really
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I don't have a weight problem. So let me give people credit for having a lot more trouble than I do. And I can have junk food in the house and not eat it. And
Okay.
a lot of people can't. And I
True.
totally
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, I'm very fortunate. Um, I think for people who do have a weight problem, and you know who you are if you do, and you can't, if you've got junk food in the house, it's screaming at you, eat me. You have to figure out how to manage that.
Yeah.
And that's a management problem.
Yeah.
And one way to do it is not to have it in the house. So.
Yes, that. But I also think it's the environment that we live in too. You can't go into like a clothing store without
Oh, no,
someone
there's
trying to
food
sell you
everywhere.
sugar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I
snacks
just
everywhere.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
ridiculous.
look, the food industry is not a social service agency, and it's not a public health agency. It's a business. Its job is to sell food. Its goal is to sell as much food as possible to as many people as possible, as often as possible, everywhere as possible, at as high a price as they can get away with. That's the goal.
We have listeners, and you mentioned this in your book. You mentioned this in your book, What to Eat Now. When I got this book, I actually went directly to the organic section because we have guests. We have listeners who are really interested. They've heard rumors that they can't trust the USDA organic label. What is your take on that?
I think you can, for the most part. I wouldn't say 100%, but enough. And the organic rules are very clear, and the producers are inspected to make sure they follow those rules. So I think, for the most part, you can trust that they follow the organic rules. Whether you think the organic rules are good enough is a question we can debate and argue about. And, there are now groups that are saying, well, we really need regenerative on top of organic. And they want to start, the Real Organic Project wants to start with organics and then put regenerative on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
I greatly favor that. This is about production values. But I think for the most part, the rules are okay and you can trust it. And if you don't, go to farmers markets and talk to the farmers about what they're doing.
Right.
Most
Right.
people who are in this business care a lot about it.
Right. And I heard that farmers will, like, I think it's what you said this in this book, farmers will report on each other. They want to make sure everyone's sticking to the rules. So,
Well, because if people don't trust it, then they won't pay the premium.
right.
How it
Right.
costs more to produce.
So we can trust it.
So I think everybody
Okay.
should buy organic if you can afford it. I wish the government would subsidize it so it would be more affordable
Well,
for.
hopefully we'll get
Me
there.
too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well,
Thank you for that.
let's hope.
Okay. All right, Staci, well, we've jumped around a lot, so we kind of covered a lot of this stuff already. But you're a fan of regenerative, and how do you feel about the real organic label? It's much smaller. Realer.
Yeah, I like the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the Real Organic project puts regenerative on top of organic, or does it do something else?
I think they just don't trust the USDA, so it's a smaller
Yeah, I don't
label.
like-
Like you can do hydroponic farming with USDA label, but you can't with the real organic. It has to be in soil. I think they
Yeah.
just have higher,
Yeah,
they're more strict
standards.
requirements,
Okay,
higher
fine.
standards. Yeah, you don't see that as much. The real organic
No, you
label
don't.
is
What
the
you
USDA.
what you do see is non-GMO.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of the things that the non-labeling of GMOs did was to spawn the non-GMO project, and it's probably the most successful front of package label anybody's ever seen. I think there's 60,000 products in the supermarket that carry it. If it's organic, it's automatically non-GMO.
Right. People don't know that, I don't think.
And people don't realize that. So
Yeah.
there are lots of products that say they're USDA organic and also say they're non-GMO. But if they're USDA organic, there's no GMO stuff in them.
Now, you know about this, the USDA organic, if something's organic, it doesn't necessarily mean it's more nutritious. It can mean it, but not necessarily. But the evidence is more about the chemicals, the absence of the chemicals that we should
It's a production. It's about how it's produced. It's produced without an enormous range of harmful chemicals. And there's plenty of evidence to back up that kids who are fed organics don't have nearly as high levels of those chemicals in their blood. So that's a reason for trusting it. It's not fertilized with sewage sludge. Oh, that was a good decision. Well, we're finding sewage sludge poisoning huge amounts of land because it's got so much toxic metals in it, and it's non-GMO.
Okay.
For sure. And then how regenerative it is depends on who the producers are.
Right. And so you can get regenerative organic certified. You're not going to see a lot of that because it's just another certification and it's expensive. But if you, like you mentioned, if you go to local farmers market, you can learn how people are growing their food. And it could be.
They'll tell you that they absolutely do not use these They're not using glyphosate. They're not using any of the harmful pesticides or herbicides. And and that's good. The thing about nutrition that's complicated is that plants make their own vitamins. So it's very, very difficult the Rodale Institute is doing a very long-term study where they're comparing fields on which they're growing using industrial methods on one and organic methods on another. And I think they're hoping to show that the organic ones are much more nutritious, but they'll certainly show that they're more free of pesticides.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've seen a lot of the evidence about the impacts of the pesticides. What are some of them that you feel like you should definitely be concerned about, or that we should
be concerned about all of them?
Yeah.
Particularly because there's so many, and there's no evidence at all that they're good for us.
Right.
It's very, very difficult to do the research to demonstrate harm of pesticides that are consumed in very low amounts. It's really hard to do that research. You start thinking about how would you prove it. It's impossible. But we're exposed to a lot of them, and they kill plants, they kill non-target insects. They kill all kinds of things.
And our gut bacteria, I understand, too,
It's
some of our gut
very,
bacteria.
very hard to think that they would do anything good for us. And we consume a lot of them. And usually the studies look at one at a time. We're consuming a lot of them. I think less is better.
Okay. Thank you. This is great.
So, Marion, you've spent decades studying the relationship between food, health, and policy. What do you think is the biggest nutrition myth that people still believe today?
That what you eat is more important than how much you eat. I'm a calorie believer. Body weight is a really big problem for lots and lots and lots of people. 75% of American adults are overweight or obese. And vast numbers of Americans are now taking GLP-1 drugs. And what those drugs do is get people to eat less. I don't think you should count calories. That's not at all what I'm saying. I think the calories count. And for body weight, they count a lot. But the problem is that the only way that you can know whether your caloric intake is okay, too much, too little, is by weighing yourself. If your weight is going up, you're eating too many calories. Period. End of discussion. Cut back.
Right.
But
if someone had like 1,000 calories worth of Pop-Tarts in a day versus 1,000 calories of whatever you're eating, Marion, that would also make a difference, wouldn't it?
No, not to weight.
Not to weight.
Not to weight.
But
no.
to health.
To health, yes. It would make a big difference.
Okay.
It would make a
So
big
if you're trying to lose weight,
if you're trying to lose weight, you have to eat less.
Okay.
And nobody wants to hear that because it's really hard to do. Just look at what happens when people go off the GLP-1 drugs. They gain the weight back. Nobody wants to eat less. It's hard. But it turns out eating less and moving more works if you can do it. If you can do it. And it's easier to do it if you're eating real food. The philosophy behind the new guidelines is one that I subscribe to. And it is, if you're eating real foods and you're not eating a lot of junk food, you're going to reach satiety easier and you'll feel full and you won't want to eat excess calories. Ultra-processed foods make people eat too many calories. Plenty of evidence to back that up now.
Yeah, you can't just eat one Dorito. It's almost impossible.
Well, there was that famous Eat Lay's commercial that you can't eat just one.
Just one.
That's the whole point. It's the whole point.
Yeah.
That philosophy makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's just the dietary guidelines didn't talk about how people without money are supposed to do this. Or cooking skills.
And you do talk a lot about that in your work about social inequalities as far as access to healthier foods.
And these guidelines specifically reject equity as a consideration. They say so in the introduction and in the fact sheet that goes with it.
And how would the government help address that, the subsidies? Subsidizing the right foods?
Oh, it could. It could, but that would be an equity initiative, and they're saying they're not going to do that.
Not going to do it.
They're not going to do it. Yeah, you could subsidize. We have a food system that is focused on producing feed for animals and fuel for automobiles. Half the corn and soybeans go for ethanol or diesel. That's impossible to get my head around. I just can't. 45% to 50% of the corn and soybeans are used for fuel or feed, not food.
And the animals aren't even supposed to be eating that stuff, right?
Right.
It's not even really the food.
I mean, so if you want, we need a food system that's focused on food for people.
Food for people.
And that's what should be subsidized.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. We call this the Digestible Podcast because we try to keep it short for our listeners. This was packed full of great things, and we only have 2 questions left for you if you'd be willing to sit with us for those. They're the questions we ask all of our guests. The first one is, if you could give our guests one action item, a takeaway from today's discussion, something they can do after listening to all of your wonderful wisdom, what would it be?
Enjoy your dinner.
Enjoy your dinner.
I think food is one of life's greatest pleasures, and people suffer over it so much it breaks my heart. Enjoy what you eat. Um, Anything that you can do to have enjoyment these days, it seems to me, is a good thing.
That's such good advice. I feel like the world is so stressed out about their food and what they're eating.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. So thank you. That's
And
great.
what's the other one?
God says.
So our last question is, here at the Digestible Podcast, we like to say, don't panic, just pivot. Is there a small pivot or change that you've made recently in your life that you are willing to share with us?
Well, that I've made?
Uh-huh.
No, I'm really set in my ways.
They seem like good ways.
Yes, they do.
Set in my ways. I just try to get vegetables in when I can.
That's great. And you're not
Right.
slowing down.
No.
That's great. Well, we need you around. We need you to keep sharing your wisdom
Keep writing the books.
and keep writing the books. So thank you.
Will do. Got another one coming out in September.
Oh my gosh.
We
What's this
can't
one
wait.
about?
This is the cereal book. This is the book that I'm a co-authored book with a former vice president of Kellogg, and it's about food labeling policy and marketing and food culture based on cereal boxes.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
It's entirely based on cereal boxes. So we deconstruct the cereal box and talk about all of the issues that the cereal boxes reflect.
That's
my gosh.
great.
And
As
such
two
a big-
girls who were raised on cereal, we were raised on all the sugars. and
All the
two of us.
cereals.
So it's a really fun book. It was a wonderful book to write, and it's going to be fabulously illustrated in
I
color.
can't wait.
Wonderful.
What's the title? Do you have a title for it yet?
It's called Sugar Coated, and then
Sugar Coated.
and then has a long subtitle that I haven't memorized yet.
That's
Great. Well,
wonderful.
Thanks so much for your time today. This has been so great. I'm so starstruck.
It was really fun talking to you. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Digestible Podcast with this week's guest, Marion Nestle, molecular biologist, nutritionist, and public health advocate, author, and expert. We were so excited to have her. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this episode, please share us with others. It's the best compliment you can give us. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at info@digestiblestrategies.com. We look forward to hearing from you, and remember, don't panic, just pivot. The content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are not medical professionals, and the views expressed here are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any health conditions. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider before making any health-related decisions.